Hey, Freedom 95 listeners. So, on today's show, we talk about the Trump Kim Jong Un North Korean summit that was held in Singapore, where they sat down and talked about the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. We talked about some of the other things that were in that joint statement, including the return of remains of soldiers, U.S. soldiers that were lost during the Korean War. So we talk about that. You know, we covered this, I've learned, a little bit differently than a lot of folks who have been focused on the handshake, or they've been focused on the hairdo, or they've been focused on what somebody wears, or who does the certain amount of smiling, who's more comfortable, who's more tense, who benefits from this perceived meeting, and so on and so forth. We don't get into it like that, because although I will stop and say that it is important that American leaders portray strength in their body language, much as Reagan did back in his meeting with Gorbachev in 1985 in Geneva, Switzerland, where he came down the stairs helping Gorbachev out of the car and then back up the stairs without wearing a coat. Gorbachev even was seen kind of grabbing Reagan's arm going up the stairs. So we talk about it a little bit, but not to the not to the extent that some of these media figures, are discussing this breathlessly and analyzing this to the nth degree. But we do also talk about Gorbachev and Reagan and their summit at Reykjavik, Iceland, back in 1986, where the media actually criticized Reagan in the wake of that summit, but that was way too early, because a mere 3 years later, actually not even 3 full years later, the Berlin Wall came down in spite of the media's harsh criticism of Ronald Reagan back in 1986 because of that summit, because he could not find a way to come to agreement with Gorbachev when Gorbachev, kind of pulled the rug out from under him, wanting the elimination of our Star Wars program. But anyway, we talk about all that. We also touch briefly on the Supreme Court decision that was handed down yesterday regarding Ohio in particular, and how states can try to purge their voter records, right? What is the balance between maintaining voter rights and preventing against voter fraud by having a bunch of people on the logs, on the rolls, who are no longer voters for a particular state? So anyway, those are the things we talk about today, guys. I appreciate you listening. We'll see you soon. Take care.